Tuning in to another edition of the NFL Draft Show here on the Grueling Truth Network, where legends speak. I'm Dan Kornhauser, and co-hosting with me tonight is Sam Teets, our resident draft expert. Sam, how you doing? Happy Thursday.
Doing great, Dan. Happy Thursday to you. I'm excited tonight because I don't really know what the show topic is yet. It's gonna get sprung on me here in a minute, and I've been told to come prepared to defend myself. So this will be very interesting to see how this turns out.
Good. I'm excited because tonight it's a very special show, and it's going to be the Sam Teets November Big Board Breakdown.
All right.
I saw that you had released it a couple days ago, and I have perused it. There is one very glaring omission that I will bring up later, but let me share my screen for the moment so we can take a nice look at it. I have it right here in front of me. So let's go there. Let's do that. And this is it. All right. So you see the screen all right on your end?
Yep. Coming through clear on my end.
Excellent. All right. So here we are. We are on Sam's Substack, Sports Talk with Sam Teets. And this is where Sam, as he mentions every week at the end of the show, this is where he posts all his draft stuff and everything that goes on, NFL draft, NFL week-to-week stuff, his mock drafts, his big boards, his scouting reports, all the good stuff. And I saw it the other day, and I read through it, and I went down, and I wrote down some names, and I had to it. Something fresh.
I'm curious. I want to know it. You said there's an omission. I'll be interested to hear about that. I full cards on the table here. I have a document with over 700 player names in it that I had to comb through to pull out the guys for this list. So it is like picking for a needle through a haystack, essentially, for all these guys. Like I wrote down my top 150, and I got to 150, and I realized I had left I forget who it was. I left someone off who was supposed to 112 or something like that. So I had to go back in and reorder everything. It was just such a pain. But that it is a little bit of a troublesome process of going through all this. I do tend to get lost, lose some names sometimes, and come back to it late in the process. But I'm interested to see who you think I had too low or who you think I omitted.
Well, we will definitely get to that. Before we jump in, I want to just start the show off right.
Thursday night, baby.
Thirsty Thursday. Let's do it. All right. So we're looking at your top 5, okay? And there's a few names that are pretty standard amongst most top 5s. And then there's Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, who you have at number 2 overall on your big board. Now, to give the folks at home a little background, Sam made it very clear at the beginning of his big board explanation, the paragraph leading into the big board, that this is not position value specific. So you're saying basically as of now, November 17th, that Bijan Robinson is the second best player on your board.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really unique talent in terms of what he can bring to your offense. I know people talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and how versatile he is as a receiver, how he can make guys miss in space. But Bijan Robinson can make guys miss in space. He's got power as well. And he's an underrated receiver, too. He can catch the ball in the backfield as well. We're talking about a dude who maybe is not Saquon Barkley. He's not that kind of guy coming out, but he's probably the next best thing in terms of running backs in recent history. And he's not getting as much love as maybe Saquon because he hasn't had the Heisman candidate type of season, per se.
Mm-hmm.
And also because we have kind of moved away from running backs in the NFL in terms of being first-round picks, especially after that class where you had Barkley, Rashad Penny, Sony Michel, and you just don't. It's not a very good brand move to have those 3 guys come out in first-round picks and have Barkley be the only one who's effective at this point in his career, a couple seasons later. But I do view Bijan Robinson as a player who's a huge floor raiser for your team who can contribute in a lot of different ways, and he is one of the 5 best players in this draft class.
Now, we did our mock draft on last week's show. And Robinson, second on your board, but the man fell all the way to the end of the first round in our mock. He fell all the way down to 31 overall, where was that my pick? Yeah, that was my pick where I finished the drop, where I put a stop to it. Because let's just be honest, it was an egregious situation that he was still on the board. And in reality, he's probably going off 10 to 15 picks higher, depending on his testing and so on and so forth. But him being the number 2 overall prospect, so this is a 3-down running back, future All-Pro, and one of the very best at his position in the NFL sooner than later. That's what number 2 overall says. Potential Hall of Famer, maybe.
Yeah, I never assume guys are Hall of Famers going into the draft process, but I do think he is someone who will be probably like top 10 in his position almost immediately. You look at some of the guys who've been taken the first round in recent years. We talk about, like I said, Rashad Penny, Sony Michel, even like Najee Harris of Pittsburgh last year. Najee Harris was a Pro Bowl last year based on volume. I think that this is a player who will be a Pro Bowl caliber dude based on explosive plays. Najee Harris has not had the explosiveness. Bijan Robinson does. He will make a difference in multiple areas of the game. You've got the stats pulled there right now from at least last season. 195 carries for over 1,100 rushing yards, 26 receptions for 295 receiving yards. He can contribute in most areas of the game, and he has been a guy who's been known about since his high school years. Like, this is a dude who's been around for a long time and is a very known quantity. Almost in the same sense of, I'll go back to like a Jonathan Taylor in terms of what Jonathan Taylor did in high school, because he was dominant in high school, goes to Wisconsin, is dominant in Wisconsin, comes to the NFL. He's been dominant in the NFL when healthy. And I think that Bijan Robinson has a chance to be a similar player who's transcendent at all 3 levels, but he's going to be better in the receiving game than Jonathan Taylor.
Do you see any holes in Robinson's game that, compared to other running backs, maybe he's not the complete back that we look for? Is there anything that stands out to you? Fumbling, pass blocking, in the passing game, anything?
He had 3 fumbles, I believe, in 2021, according to this website I was looking at. So it is something you have to worry about there. He also had 3 drops too, so maybe not the most surefire hands of any guy you've seen. But we even seen like Travis Etienne has fumbled a couple times since being in the NFL. But Travis Etienne has been on fire this year. So it's in terms of a balance of is the fumbling worth it in terms of the production you're getting? And in case of Bijan Robinson, I think it is. So that was something to keep an eye on. I haven't looked at his fumble numbers for this year quite yet.
It looks like he's only been credited with 1 lost fumble.
Yeah, then you're fine with that. I mean, if it's just 1 season where you have multiple fumbles, then that's really not a big deal, in my opinion. Won't hold that against him too much. Not really a guy who's a lot of special teams experience, but he comes in as your starting running back right away. You wouldn't expect him to play a lot of special teams. His route tree is not very diverse right now. But again, it's something you can build on. And frankly, there's only so many running backs in the NFL who have really diverse route trees, I guess you'd say. Guys you can actually put in the slot and play from that role. So I'm not too worried about that long term as well. I think he can be a better pass protector. You know, there's guys like Blake Corum who's like 5'8", but Blake Corum will go after dudes in pass protection. Blake Corum has no problems with being a blocker. Bijan Robinson is much bigger than Blake Corum and much more muscular than Blake Corum. He's about 220 pounds, and he doesn't go after guys. He doesn't go hunting for guys in pass pro the way I would like him to. So I think he can be more aggressive in that sense. But short of everything else, there's really not much to point to. Like, there really is not a lot you could say that's bad about Bijan Robinson, and there is room for improvement certainly, but I don't view this guy as having many really significant holes to his game.
So your RB, he's your RB1, a top 2 prospect. Your RB2 is Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back from Alabama. And then after that, it kind of falls off a little bit. You're kind of drifting until the middle of the 2nd round at this point with Devon Achane, the running back from Texas A&M, as your RB3. So is the fall off from 1 to 2 that big, or from 2 to 3 bigger? What's the difference here?
I think the fall from 2-3 is bigger, but actually my RB3 is a little bit higher than Achane. Achane's at 45. Blake Corum is my RB3 at 36 from Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I overskipped. Yeah, Blake Corum from Michigan.
Yeah, it's all good. Blake Corum was a guy I watched in the summer, and I was really surprised, genuinely blown away by what I saw. Like, I really do like Blake Corum. And this is a report from the summer, actually, that you're reading right now. I haven't had a chance to update many of these yet because I keep going through new ones as we hear Senior Bowl names. But I had him ranked as an early 2nd to early 3rd guy, round guy in the summer, and I really have not moved off that grade at all. He is very twitchy in space. He's not like super explosive. He doesn't have great long speed. but he can make guys miss in space. And hasn't really contributed as much as a receiver this year as I thought he would, but he's shown receiving upside in 2021. He's got some special teams experience as well, returning kicks. And what he's able to do in short areas is just special. And he's a really stout guy. He's only 5'8", 5'7". He weighs about 200 pounds. So for perspective, for someone that size, that's a lot of weight to have that size. And it's good weight. It's muscle. So he's able to bounce off guys, break tackles. There's a lot to like about him. It's just he's probably going to be more scheme specific because he's not going to be a true burner. He's not going to be like A-Chain's got this track, legit track speed. Great Corum's not that. He's got good initial burst to get to the second level, but once you hit the third level, and he's going to be able to get caught from behind a little bit. So there's some limitations there. But in terms of the power for due to size and the footwork and the lateral bounce, it's incredible. I had so much fun watching him in the summer. I actually liked him as much in the summer as I liked Jahmyr Gibbs. Now Gibbs has kind of outperformed. I don't want to say outperformed Corum this year. Corum's been better statistically, but Gibbs I think has shown more NFL caliber traits or stuff I know will transition to the NFL a little bit better than Blake Corum has, and he's also a more prototypical running back in terms of size, because Blake Corum, the big knock is going to be the size.
And for Corum, concerns in the passing game, because he doesn't get a lot of touches through the air at Michigan. They tote, and they tote often, and he's getting the rock. The man's got 1,300 rushing yards thus far this season, 17 rushing touchdowns, but he doesn't get any work in the passing game. So he's at 1,349, averaging 5.9 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns, but he's only got 9 receptions for 41 yards. Does that give you any pause moving on to the next level?
I'm a little concerned about that, but he had more receptions last year, and I thought he showcased good ability as a receiver last season. It's just unfortunate they haven't gotten more involved in that role this year. I thought they would have, frankly. I thought they were going to use him more frequently as a pass catcher. Considering they had 24 receptions last year, you're looking at the numbers now for 141 yards. And I liked what I saw from him in those instances. But yeah, you do have to be concerned that maybe his route running is a little underdeveloped. Maybe he has not been given enough of those reps. And I think that's something that he can build on the NFL level. He can adjust to that and get back into rhythm with it. But it's something you do have to worry about a little bit considering how underutilized he's been this year in that role.
So let's move on from the running back position. That was the first thing that really stood out to me was Robinson at number 2, ahead of guys like Young and Carter and a couple of others. But since you didn't take positional value into account, I guess that makes sense. You're going off of pure talent. But before we continue, I want to remind you guys that we are powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for sportsbook and casino sites. So head on over to betting.net today. And back to the big board. All right, let's keep going. So the top 5, pretty ho-hum otherwise outside of Robinson. You got Will Anderson 1, pretty standard. Jalen Carter at 3, Murphy at 4, and Bryce Young at 5. But then we go down a little ways. CJ Stroud at number 13, not discounting any of these other prospects in front of him because they're all solid. And I know you're a huge fan of Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State. We talked about Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, when we did our mock draft. And I did see that you posted something on Twitter specifically about Tyree Wilson. Before we go to the quarterbacks, why don't you share that tweet with our reviewers just in case it didn't.
Let me pull that up real quick. But yeah, that got a lot of traction actually. It got retweeted and favored by the football account, by the actual Twitter account from Texas Tech football, by the head coach, by Tyree Wilson himself.
Crazy.
And by the scouting director at Texas Tech and a whole bunch of other people involved in the program. The creative content director too. It was pretty incredible. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders found that and they really liked that tweet. But the tweet is, and I do this thing every day. I do a stat of the day every single day I post on Twitter. And the stat of the day was, if Tyree Wilson's season is over, because he did have a lower ankle injury, I believe, a lower leg injury this past weekend. If his season is over, he applied pressure on roughly 19.16% of his pass rush snaps. And for comparison, that's greater than 2021 Will Anderson, which was 17.01. 2019 Chase Young, 17.5%. 2014 Myles Garrett, 18.79%. And it's just behind 2017 Nick Bosa, which was 19.64%. So if we're talking about Tyree Wilson, I mean, we're talking about him being legitimately, in terms of production, legitimately up there with these guys who have been considered like first overall picks. He is in that range in terms of production this year, and he's got the physical tools to match it. Like sometimes you see guys from, I mean, I don't know where. Like you see guys from, I'll say UAB. I don't have an example from UAB, but just like a small school who will come out and have a ridiculous pressure rate and all this stuff. And you go back and watch the tape, and he's just like out athleting people. He's just running by these guys who will be not playing football in 2 or 3 years down the line, essentially. That's not the case with Tyree Wilson. He's not faced like the SEC caliber tackles or the Big Ten caliber tackles, but he still faced legitimate talent, and he's just been destroying them.
Now, getting beyond Wilson, I love that you have him in the top 10, and I love that my boy Quentin Johnston is right there at inside your top 10, a wide receiver from TCU. That might be my favorite prospect in this class, so up to this point. But you got CJ Stroud at number 13. What do you see with Stroud that makes you put him at this point, and why not higher, regardless of his positional value playing quarterback? I mean, the kid is just top 5 talented. Why at 13? Why the drop?
Yeah, he's made in the past couple weeks has become even more apparent, but with the exception of the Indiana game, which I didn't take into account because of the timing when this article went out. But Northwestern playing in a windy game count where that went out, but Penn State to some extent, and a couple of games this year, and even going back to last year. When you watch Stroud, there's some concerns regarding footwork. He's very inconsistent with his footwork. His alignment is too when he tries to go throw the ball. His feet are often misplaced or not set for a base. He's very toesy in the pocket, and he has this thing where he will take extra steps to reset his base instead of just being smooth and doing your usual drop and then opening your hips and going right to your throw. He will reset his base and consistently take extra steps than he needs to, which actually throws the timing off on some passes. So that's a concern as well. He's benefited from the Ohio State system, certainly, to some extent in terms of the things he gets to do. He does a pretty good job in pre-snap recognition, I'll say, making changes, but post-snap he does not. Post-snap is not his thing right now. He gets thrown off, and he will make poor reads. And oftentimes those plays get lost in the course of games because he'll make a bad throw against Michigan State, but then he'll throw 5 touchdowns the entire game, and it won't even matter. He does have those moments that I think will pop up more frequently in the NFL where he misreads plays, makes poor decisions. I do think he can improve his accuracy and ball placement. I think his footwork is a concern right now as far as it goes. And again, his processing is something that I'm looking at that I am a little worried about long-term in the NFL. I know people are trying to – I'm not talent scouting when I say this. I know it was somewhat of a concern with Justin Fields as well. But frankly, it's not their fault. The offensive system just kind of breeds this to some extent that you don't get to see the full extent of processing, and it also makes things a little bit simpler for the quarterback. Mm-hmm. But Stroud has had moments post-snap where he's basically reading to the defense and he gets fooled. And he shows up on tape, or he makes the wrong play, he makes the wrong decision. So there are some concerns with Stroud that I don't think are as present with Bryce Young. I know Bryce Young, it's all the physical stuff, but for Stroud, to some extent, there is some concerns regarding processing. And frankly, his throwing speed, his whole throwing motion is, while it's smooth, it's not very quick. Like his release is not the fastest. I'd like to speed up a little bit more. So I think there are some concerns that just kind of all add up with CJ Stroud that I feel like would cause him difficulties early in his NFL career.
Yeah, and looking at his games week to week, I mean, we're talking about a Heisman candidate, and this is one situation where, as much as I love stats, and I'm a huge stats guy, you look at his stats, you say, well, but Sam, the man's got 34 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He's completed 67% of his passes. He's a Heisman finalist, maybe the Heisman frontrunner at this point, depending on who you talk to. You're talking about bad decisions and all that, but what do you mean? And then, you look back and you see he's got great games, Toledo, Penn State, Indiana, he put up great stats against these teams. But then you look at Rutgers, 13 of 22, 59% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns and a pick, a 7.0 yards per attempt against Notre Dame. cute stat line, 69.7% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no picks, only 6.6 yards per attempt. Then you look at Northwestern, like you mentioned, he just shit the bed against Northwestern, 2.9 yards per attempt.
They did, in his defense, they did have like ridiculous wind speeds that day, if I recall. I was like an old ground game kind of day, but still. I mean, we saw Josh Allen go out and throw the ball in whatever that windstorm was back up in Buffalo in the New England Patriots game. If you remember that from last year, where New England came out and ran the ball like 50 times or whatever, they didn't let Mac Jones throw at all.
Right. So you look at the stats, and the stats don't always tell the full story. And I like how you broke it down the way you did with CJ Stroud, because that's important to remember, especially for a casual fan or someone just getting into scouting or interested into it and watching film. And there's certain subtleties. You were talking about his footwork. You were talking about his body positioning. You were talking about arm angles and different ways he throws a ball and how fast it gets out. Things like that. See, that's stuff that's the good stuff that people are looking for right there. So I appreciate you breaking it down the way you did. But let's stick with the quarterbacks for a hot second, because you keep going down the list. Anthony Richardson at 34, but this is the first part where there were some glaring omissions that I was very concerned about, particularly at this position, more so than others. And some of them were explained by injuries and stuff like that. But hold on, where is that? There was a specific spot I saw that you guys had guys listed. Was it below the top 10? Because these are the borderline.
Are you looking for Bo Nix, Tanner McKeer, or Michael Penix? Which one is it?
It's
which one of those three?
It's I mean, it is
which
your.
One of the Pac-12 quarterbacks is it? Like, or is it? Tell me. I said, Mike. Which one is it?
There's a few. Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, Cam Rising out of Utah. Yes, Penix from Washington. I mean, you even got Bo Nix at 162. But
Bo Nix has been balling this year.
He has. So.
But I do have to admit, like, I put this list together and I said I was going to publish it. And then I'm like, all right, nothing from this week is going to affect it whatsoever. And then Michael Penix came out later that night and had the game he had against Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Where, again, like, he and Bo Nix were both good in that game. Penix was better. And I have Penix below Bo Nix right now. Because the one game I watched Penix this year, the 2 games I watched him, it wasn't actually probably his worst games of the season so far. So just unfortunate for him. Happens. But like, after what I saw from Penix against Oregon, he's going to move up, and he'll jump Bo Nix for sure, and he'll move up much closer to being like a 4th-round pick, in my opinion. Can we get the man into the top 100? I think he deserves it. No, I don't think I can get that far up with him. I really don't think I can put him in the top 100 because I know. Why? Because I think there's still some processing concerns with him. There's still some. I mean, you watch the decision he made when he threw the interception against Oregon. They're in the red zone. It's essentially the Trevor Lawrence play against Denver, whereas like he threw an interception in the red zone, which just throw the ball out of bounds. So there's still some decision-making points of emphasis with him. In terms of the footwork and mechanics, it's a little bit freestyle-y right now. So I still think you have to worry about that to some extent. And of course, the injuries will play into a factor. I think he has 2 torn ACLs from his time in Indiana, and I think he had three or four consecutive season-ending injuries. One of them might have been a shoulder injury as well. So he's got a long injury report, like maybe the longest of any guy I have from the top 200. So he's someone we're going to have to look at from a medical standpoint, which is always so weird because I don't have that inside information to make a call on that. So it's tough to decide how much is that actually going to be a factor, essentially. So that's tough for him. Like, I don't know how to really adjust for that. I can tell you, I think it was 170. I think you flew by him. He will be moving up. He will get into the top 150. 170, there he is. You're good. You know where the man is. Now, just because Zion Nelson, talk about a fall off, yeah? He hasn't played much this year. If I recall, he's been dealing with injuries, so he really hasn't had a chance to go out and prove himself. But the concerns with Zion Nelson is just he was the same dude in 2021 that he was in 2020. Like, he just did not improve. And that's the ultimate flaw of a guy who was an athletic project like Zion Nelson, just did not get any better or did not get significantly better from 2020 to 2021. And that's the issue because people were expecting growth. That was the whole idea, was that he would get better. which is why you saw more hype for him last year than this season, I think. And then this year he's played, I think, all of 2 or 3 games, which is why it kind of just falls off over time, unfortunately. Maybe he'll medically redshirt. Maybe he'll have an opportunity to come back and play next year.
Okay. I mean, because I remember he was at one point looked at as a potential first-round pick.
Yeah, and a lot of that was projection, though. A lot of that was the idea that this guy was converted from tight end, I believe, and then was playing immediately out of position, was not good in 2019, was quickly pretty decent in 2020. And the idea was, oh, wow, the growth here from this guy. If he gets more time at tackle, he will be fantastic because he'll have all this athletic ability, and he will just get this technical development built in over time. And the technical development just has not come, unfortunately.
Now, we are running out of time here. We're about 25, almost 26 minutes in. Before we continue, I want to remind you guys that your top sportsbook comparison site is betting.net. Betting.net offers extensive reviews on the best sports books out there. So head on over to betting.net. Now, there's so much more I want to talk about. There was a few players on this list that were in different spots that I'm not a fan of. But let's just stick with the quarterbacks for a little bit longer before we move on and wrap this up. Bo Nix, 162. Where was he? I saw him somewhere around here. There he is, Tanner McKee from Stanford. And then, like I said, the other guys that I mentioned before that, Devin O'Leary and so on and so forth. Grayson McCall, who's having an amazing season. Some of these guys are McGee, for example, is a projected potential first-round pick, and yet there he is sitting outside your top 100. I know we're in November, and I know, like you said, you mixed and matched this thing 100 times before you sent it out. But tell me about the thought process around that, where you see in a lot of circles a future potential first-round pick in a guy like McGee, but you're really low on him. How do you arrive to that conclusion at this point?
Yeah, I'm the lowest on him by far from anyone that I have talked to. I know Mike Renner over at PFF has been on this guy since last year and just will not let it go. Like, he has been trying to get this guy in the first round no matter what. And even the guys that I work with at Sports Illustrated are higher on McKee than me. Like, we put together a top 100 recently.
I think we came out yesterday.
Yeah, we're going to update the site with. And they both had no issues with McKee in the top 100, and I was kind of pulling them back. So the reason McKee's not higher on the list is because I exist. So with McKee, I do have a handful of concerns. He's a bit of an older prospect, but so is Jaren Hall, who I like significantly more, actually. And Sports Illustrated guys do not agree with me on that part. But one of the things I have with McKee I don't like, I don't like his throwing motion very much. I think he's got a very elongated throwing motion that actually makes it really easy for defenders to kind of lock on and adjust to it. I don't think he's very accurate on the run. I think he kind of panics a lot when everything breaks down around him. He tends to panic quite frequently. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of clips of hitting really precise passes floating around online because I know Mike Renner's been pushing them out as frequently as he can. I can find those for a lot of quarterbacks in this class. I can show you just as many impressive throws from Jaren Hall making the same exact difficulty level throws. And people will not get on board with me on Jaren Hall, and that's fine. It might be just the difference this year for me. I might have Jaren Hall ranked higher than people, and I might have Tanner McKee ranked lower. That might just be my thing this year. But with McKee, I do feel like a lot of the technical amounts are kind of off. I will say to his credit, he's got NFL size. He's got pretty active footwork in the pocket, and not like just hoppy footwork, like good active footwork. He's able to shorten his release for quick throws if he wants to. He's been pretty accurate on back shoulder throws. His release angle. He's got enough mobility to navigate the pocket. I wouldn't really consider him a threat to run that often. I really wouldn't want him running, frankly. He's got some flashes of nice touch and good ball placement, too, on intermediate throws. I don't think it's there on deep throws yet. Mm-hmm. I think he's not really adjusted his touch for short throws as well. He tends to throw like missiles essentially at guys who are just 5 or 6 yards away. You have to be able to put touch in those passes. And he trusts his arm a little too much. Like, he tries to make these high-level difficulty throws that I just don't think he's able to, or at least not yet. So he tries to make these throws that end up being turnover-worthy plays because he's trying to hit something and just should pass over in the meantime. And his pocket awareness right now is also a big concern for me. And he doesn't really create much off-platform or off-script because, again, he doesn't have great mobility. and he has his fair share of overthrows and deep passes. Like I said, the deep ball accuracy and deep ball, not so much touch, but deep ball accuracy for me is a concern as well. And throw that in with the weird throwing motion, or the elongated throwing motion, I should say. And I just don't feel very comfortable with Tanner McKee. Like, I don't want this to be a franchise guy. I don't want this to be a dude that I sit for a year and then turn to. I just don't feel that way about him.
Now, for comparison's sake, just for informational purposes, SI, which I guess it was released 12 hours ago, according to this, on their latest big board, has Tanner McKee at 87 overall on their latest big board, just for comparison's sake. But before we put a bow on this very fun episode of the draft show here on The Grueling Truth, I want to remind you guys that betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes, so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits, betting.net. So, Sam, let's wrap up this show. It's been fun so far. I like you breaking down and defending yourself on all these different stances here. And I love big boards. I like big boards more than I like mock drafts because it really shows each individual person who's, that person's big board. No two big boards are the same. They're like a fingerprint. Everybody's big board is different. No two big boards are going to have the exact same guys in the exact same spots, or some guys even close. So like for you got McKee in the hundreds. These guys got him in the 80s. There's a big difference there, but it's a beautiful thing. I love it. And I like picking your brain with these sorts of things. So with all that in mind, who on this big board has risen the most, or one of the guys who's jumped the most compared to your October big board?
Well, there are a couple of guys that weren't even on my radar, to be completely honest. I wasn't even looking at over the summer, who have gotten pretty high up on this board. But if you're looking at potential first-round guys, I think the obvious one we mentioned already is Tyree Wilson. Like, this was a dude who was going to be, in my opinion, an early second-round pick, maybe a late first-round pick in the summer, and I was getting scolded at that time for being too high on Tyree Wilson because he's just like, I was just told he was just a really freakish athlete. He didn't have the development to have the production to be a first-round, or high first-round caliber guy. And he came out and torched everyone this year. So Tyree Wilson is going to be probably a top 10 pick in the draft, assuming his injury is not significant. He's one of the biggest risers, in my opinion. And looking later on, I don't think there's a ton of shockers, but Jared Verse from Florida State, the Albany transfer, first year playing FBS football. A lot of buzz about him being a first-round pick. He's number 24 for me on the board. I had him originally graded as maybe a fourth-round pick in the summer because I wasn't sure how he would handle the jump. He's been fantastic. And then Devon Witherspoon from Illinois, another guy who could be a potential first-round pick. I have him 30th overall on my board. A little bit of an undersized guy. But Illinois has legitimately like 6 or 7 defensive prospects this year who are all going to get drafted. They have a loaded group right now.
Yep.
Those are 3 guys who I view being potentially first-round dudes who have really raised their stock quite heavily this year. And we're just to throw out a few more names because I know we got to wrap up. Some guys who I didn't even have ranked that high in the summer who have shown up this year in a big way. And granted, I couldn't get to everyone in the summer, so I probably passed over some dudes who were who showed a lot of potential last year. I just didn't get a chance to watch them. Rashawn Johnson, the backup running back in Texas, who plays behind Bijan. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's 64 on my board. Shortly after him, Luke Musgrave, the tight end from Oregon State, has been battling injuries a bit. He's at 66. I feel really good about him being an impact tight end at the next level. And he's a really good athlete too. And then Lucas Van Ness, an edge rusher from Iowa, at 68. Played a little bit of a different role last year. Didn't really get a chance to showcase all of his stuff. Not very technically refined, but a freakishly good athlete. Like really strong, really powerful. He completely put Peter Skronsky on his butt last year when they played Northwestern. I'm not even joking. Just sat him down. So I think there's a lot of hype in those kind of players. And someone like Mike Morrissey from Michigan. The Michigan guys, a lot of Michigan players, actually. Mike Morris at 77. And right behind him, Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end from Michigan, as well at 78. 2 players have gotten a lot more playing time this year because of dudes who are injured or dudes who went to the NFL. And now they are legitimate NFL prospects. Probably going to be round 3 type of guys.
Okay. And now last one. Someone who you had high on your board that's kind of fallen off a bit. A little Owen Hart status.
I still have Dontavian and Wicks at 87. Man, I feel so bad for this guy. So I'm doing an updated an updated Dontavian Wicks report for Sports Illustrated. So I just watched him again today.
Okay.
Man, I feel so – obviously you feel hearts out to the Virginia program for everything they're going through right now.
Yes.
But their offense – I mean, it's awful what happened to them. I was just watching Lavelle Davis earlier today make plays, and it's so ridiculous, but that he's not going to be available anymore. But their offense is hard to watch, man. It is straight up – it's awful. Brennan Armstrong was a guy who I thought – oh, that's another one. Brennan Armstrong, by the way, who I thought could be like a legit late fourth-round pick or fifth-round pick in the summer. Yeah, he's worse than like a Phil Dracovic or Spencer Rattler right now. Both those guys are also dudes who I don't think will get drafted anymore. But he is worse than both those guys. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, I watched just going through the first 5 minutes of game tape for the Old Dominion game Virginia played early this year.
Mm-hmm.
On the first play, Armstrong has Wicks open by like 7 yards of separation going downfield. If he makes the throw, it's going to be like a 70-yard touchdown run for Dontavian Wicks. He underthrows him by like 6 yards. Wicks comes back, actually makes a great play on the ball through the corner. He pins it to his chest, falls, hits the ground, and the ground causes the ball to bounce out, and it's an incomplete pass. And then within the course of the next 4 minutes, Wicks drops another pass that's wide open, and Armstrong misfires on 2 or 3 more throws. It's just like a comedy of errors. It was so bad. It was hard to watch it. And that's unfortunately how it's been the entire Virginia program this year, the entire Virginia offense. So Wicks is a dude who I still have viewed as like a late third to early fourth-round pick, but he's someone who I thought originally could be a late first-round pick. So unfortunately, he's a guy who I loved in the summer, but just has had drop issues this year and has really fallen off the board. Well, not fallen off the board, but has really fallen down the board for me.
I mean, anytime you got a quick twitch athlete who's fast and runs good routes at receiver, I mean, it sounds like the perfect package.
Yeah, he's good. Oh, he's going to find ways to get open. His footwork is awesome. I mean, his footwork's great. I think his long speed is not as good as I originally thought it was going to be. So speed might be a concern for him, but his route running just creates natural separation. He gets open. He makes 5-6 yards of separation just by running routes and cutting off his stems. He's got such good feet at the top of his route, and he sets guys up. Like he sets guys up for double moves beautifully. He's going to be excellent at creating separation as a natural route runner at the next level.
One final note, Will Levis at number 41 kind of makes our mock draft look a little silly, considering.
Yeah, I know, but we have to admit, like, NFL teams will always value quarterbacks highly. It's just I'm not going to get there with Will Levis. I know he's been hurt. But the whole hype about this guy is he's going to be coming from a pro-style offense. He's a physical quarterback who's going to be able to run. I tell you this, if you're a physical quarterback who's going to run at the NFL level, you're going to get hurt again. You're going to have to play hurt eventually. Josh Allen is playing hurt right now.
Yep.
And if Will Levis is being comped to Josh Allen, which is a little silly, but if he is being comped to Josh Allen, he's going to have to play hurt at the next level. So what you're seeing from Josh Allen or from Will Levis right now in Kentucky is something you will probably see at the next level. If he gets drafted to a bad team, which he probably will, because someone's going to be picking highly, and get drafted to a bad team, going to be thrown to probably less than ideally talented wide receivers, which is what he's dealing with at Kentucky right now. Might not even have the best coaching, considering some of the coaches who got hired this past year. You look at what's going on in Las Vegas and Denver. You might not even have a good coaching for Will Levis at the NFL level. There's a lot that I feel like he needs to go right for Will Levis to be a successful quarterback at the NFL level. And I just don't think that's the same thing for Stroud or Bryce Young.
And the Andre Carter II slander train continues with Sam. You're disrespecting this man. You got him at 119. He might be a first-round pick, second-round pick, almost should be a lock, depending on who you talk to, and you got him at 119. We'll save that. We'll save that for another day, though. For now, Sam, since we're here, let's plug this. Sam's got a Substack, sportstalk.substack.com, where you'll find all of these goodies. Recent, like I said at the beginning of the show, recent scouting reports, NFL stuff, stock up, stock down, his recent big board, all sorts of goodies for us. And Sam, I'm going to stop sharing that screen and let's wrap this up. It's been a good, it's been a good 40 minutes. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Whoever's been following us thus far, before we close it up, betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes, so you don't have to. Head over to their website now, betting.net, to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. Sam, what is your handle on Twitter?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Sam_Teets33. That's Teets. And you'll find in my pinned tweet a link to the Substack. You can go. It's going to ask you for your email the first time you go to it, but you can just hit let me read it first. You can view all the content for free. You don't have to subscribe if you don't want to. You don't have to give an email or anything like that. You don't have to pay money. It's all free access.
Beautiful. The people love free. And I am also on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. Instagram, Twitter, give us a follow. We'll follow back. Head on over to Sam's Substack. Give him a follow. He'll appreciate it. It's some really good stuff. I love his big boards, and I love the information he provides. Plus, I mean, your man's writing for Sports Illustrated, so he's got to be doing something right. You know what I'm saying? He's got to be doing something right out there.
Yeah, I got something's right. They like you enough. They're probably on board, so something's got to be going right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're on to something, man. So, again, thank you guys for sticking with us. We'll catch you guys next week. For Sam Teets, I'm Dan Kornhauser.